Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I have a question for everybody because it's a question I asked myself and I thought, hey, I should ask this to everybody. But before I ask that, I'm going to say that I'd say that everybody here is Comicsgate. Everybody listening to me is Comicsgate. I put Comicsgate, the hashtag, right at the top of all of my videos. And if you're not Comicsgate and you're listening to me, I got to ask the question, what are you doing here? Leave me a comment because you might be opening up a whole new audience to me. Tell me why you're here. But at the very least, I'm going to make the assumption that all of you here have something to do with Comicsgate. At the very least, you heard of it and you think that it's not a racist hate movement, right? So the question I have to ask myself and you is, what industry exactly are you trying to save? Because I'd say that Comicsgate is about wanting to save an industry, but what exactly is that industry? What exactly are you trying to save? Because there's a lot of different answers to that question. Really, there's a lot of different answers to that question. Because I would say the industry that we're trying to save is comic books. Right? But again, a lot of people might see comic books in a really different way. People might say that, digital books are comic books. I personally don't consider digital comic books actual comic books. I just consider them a PDF file. They're not a comic book. It's entertainment. It's even the same kind of entertainment, but it's like, I don't know, flipping through a book of a movie that you saw. It's not the same thing. It's different. And for me, I could take it or leave it. If all the digital comics disappeared today, I really wouldn't care. So that's not something I'm trying to save. If it's an added bonus, sure, but I'm not trying to save that. And at the same time, I'm not trying to save graphic novels either. Because a lot of the Indiegogo campaigns out there, they're in graphic novel format, right? But I'm not trying to save graphic novels. I'm trying to save comic books. I think that comic books deserve saving. But graphic novels are something different. It's just a novel with some drawings attached to it. I think that's completely different. I mean, sure, it has some connections with comic books. You have your fantasy story, but it's not just a novel that has pictures attached to it. It's something different. Because, and again, this is why I talked about in one of my other videos that I think that Marvel is witnessing a brain drain. That's why you have nobody of substance in there anymore, because all of the people who should be running Marvel are just in the bigger pond of Marvel television and Marvel movies, and these people have been siphoned off, and they should be the ones running the company, the Marvel Comics company, but they're not. And to some extent, I would say that this is a reason why the people who are running Marvel tried to substitute some of that lost talent with novel writers, because they went to the YA genre and picked up a bunch of people who did YA books. And the thing is that you have these people like the writer of The Life of Captain Marvel, and she doesn't know how to write a comic book. She's a novelist. She's a successful novelist. Not one that I like in any way, but she's successful. But she freely admits, I think it was even in the letter page or the back page of the first issue of Life of Captain Marvel, that she's really out of her element writing a comic. Right? And so, yeah, it's not the same thing. Basically what she's doing is she's writing a novel. Someone's putting pictures to it. It's basically becoming a graphic novel format, but it comes out in a floppy every month. It's not the same thing. It's really not. If you read the Captain Marvel series, and I've gone over it a couple of times here on my channel, it's pathetic. It doesn't belong in a comic book. Most people would agree with me that it's a Lifetime movie or a Hallmark movie, some kind of chick flick, right? It doesn't belong in a comic book. It just doesn't fit in there. So no, I'm not trying to save graphic novels either. And again, if graphic novels were to go the way of the dinosaur this afternoon, I really wouldn't care. I'm trying to save comic books. Now, the thing is that I'm going to define exactly what I think comic books are. And I would say that most of you probably won't agree with me because we all have our own different way of interpreting things and looking at things, and you can pick it apart or whatever. But I think that this is what the core of comic books is, and we should look at it. And it has something to do with the history, but I'm just going to boil it down to exactly what it says it is. A comic book. I think names are terribly important. They mean something. This has a historical significance. It was built up as something. That name meant something, and at the core of what it always was, or at the very least some fundamental part of what it always was a comic book. That is to say that it's a book, right? It's a physical thing. It's a physical piece of art. I have said this before. I don't know, it might have been on my Twitter. It might not have been on my actual YouTube videos. But, a comic book is a physical piece of art. I would say that if that physical piece of art was no longer there and all you had was digital books, comic books would be dead. And, you need that physical book. That is essentially part of what it is. But the more important thing, I think, is that first word, comic. Now, comic, its original root word, of course, is comedy. And I would say that that word comic, as in comedy, from the very beginning, from its very inception, its use in connection with these serialized pictures and words was to mean fun. It just meant fun. And that was an essential part of it. And I think that needs to be an essential part of it. It's a comic book. It's a fun book. Now, I've gone over this in a couple of my Golden Age videos, that I think that from decade to decade, from age to age, what was considered fun had changed drastically. Because you had your old Golden Age comic books, right? And it had this sense of comedy in it, this sense of fun in it, that was, I don't know what you'd call it today. It was just so old-timey that nobody would find it funny today. Not really. You'd look at it and see it funny as a part of history, but not funny haha at all, or funny interesting or anything like that. Maybe funny interesting, but it'll be forced a little bit. And that moved into the Silver Age after that, where you had your campy funny. It was a different kind of fun. It was a silly kind of fun. No, you had your silly kind of fun in the Golden Age, but it was a different kind for a different generation. And for your Bronze Age, now your Bronze Age, I would say that the fun, because, I read these books, the fun was when you read the book, you got to see all of the interactions of these heroes. That was the Bronze Age kind of fun that was happening. I did a JLA video. One of my videos is reviewing this old JLA, just that I had come across in my collection. And, it's Bronze Age-ish book. And the fun of it was that you got to see these heroes from two different Earths interact with each other. And that was the fun part of it. That's what made it fun. It was a little more realistic compared to your Silver Age campiness, but that was the fun for the book. The fun was all of these heroes that you had read before and liked to think about as if, what if they actually met? There was your fun. And in the 80s and the 90s, which used to be called the modern age, there was a different kind of fun then. And I don't know if you'd get this if you didn't live through the 80s and the 90s, but the fun of the 80s and the 90s was darkness. Literally. That's what it was. And again, if you haven't lived through it, I don't know if you quite get that, or if you can actually get that darkness is fun. It was sort of fun in the way that, like it was Halloween every night of the year. That kind of fun. That kind of darkness. It did have fun in it. And I think that was sort of the core of what was going on in the culture about darkness is fun. Halloween every night. Great. It had an element of fun in it. But when you got into the 2000s, you know, that darkness still stayed, but that idea of Halloween every night wasn't there. That fun wasn't there anymore. People grew out of that kind of fun. And then you had your SJWs come in and take things over, and they killed every element of fun that was left. Because SJWs are anti-fun. That's literally what they are. They're anti-fun. I know a person like this, and that's literally her nickname that we have for her, is anti-fun. Right? That's what SJWs are. They're anti-fun. So they killed all the elements of fun. There should have been a new fun element to come along with a new generation of readers and an older generation that had advanced and gone from the older type of fun to a new type of fun. But no, they killed fun in comics. They killed it because that's what SJWs do. They can't deal with fun. They can't deal with humor. They're anti-fun. And so that's why comics are dying to some extent, because there is no element of fun anymore. That comic part of comic book is no longer there. And really, they could care less, I really say, especially the people working for comic companies right now. They couldn't care less, because they don't care about the fun in comic books. I mean, you see this in some of the people as you interact with them, especially the people who interact so negatively. They don't care about the fun in comics anymore. You got your Eric Larsons out there making fun of previous ages of comic books because they were campy. Yeah, they were fun. And he's making his comic book into a porno magazine. That ain't fun. All right? So you have these people. And really, they might have some attachment to the heroes. They might have some attachment to the stories. But I don't think they really want to save comic books either. In the sense that if these heroes and stories just existed in the television and the movies, that would be fine by them. It's not fine by me. I want a comic book. If they just moved over into novel format and sometimes had graphic novels, I'm sure it would be fine with them. It's not fine by me. I want a comic book. And I want that to be essentially what it was at the beginning, a fun book. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to save. And these people, I don't think, want to save that at all. I don't think they want to save it in any way. I mean, if they even have any element of I want to save comics. Because for them, I think, for many of them anyways, it's just I want to save my paycheck. You know? Because the old creators of comics, they weren't like that. I mean, I remember this DNC video where he talked about, I think it was IDW, Innocent Inception, right? And he showed the picture of what it looks like today and all these smiling, diverse faces standing out in a courtyard, many of whom look like they never cracked a comic book in their life. And then he had the picture from when it was originally created where you had 4 guys sitting in this cramped little office with boxes stacked all over the place, working on comics for 10 hours a day, and some guy coming in saying, hey, you've been here for 10 hours, let's go get some pizza. And he says, nah, I want to finish my comic. Because he loved that kind of genre. That's the love of this genre that we need in our creators. Not just in the people who are reading, but in the creators as well. Because if you don't have it in the creators, you're not going to bring it out in your audience. That fun needs to be there. And they're killing the fun. And the reason why I thought about this is because I'm looking at the whole Brie Larson fiasco with Captain Marvel, right? And about how this guy, just normal old guy, used his phone app to put a smile on Brie Larson's face and then tweeted about it. And suddenly it's become this big furor all over the place, where there's now, 50 or 60 articles written to just lambast this guy for doing it and anybody who agrees with it. Because, you know what? I actually am at the point where I don't really care if I go see a Marvel movie or not. You know, originally, It was fun to see all these heroes that I grew up with in these stories that I read when I was, in the 90s and 80s. That was fun. Right now, if it's in and I'm going to see a movie, sure. But right now, if it's in and I'm going to see a movie and it's Captain Marvel, I'm at the point where, no thanks. Because you people with your articles, you killed the fun, the last little bits of fun that were even attached to it, by saying that I had to go see this movie, and if I saw it, I had to like it, and if I was critical about it, I was a racist or a misogynist or something else. You just killed the last tiny little bits of fun attached to it. I don't care if I see it now. I really don't want to see it, actually, because of this. But at the same time, it's not just the people in the SJWs who are doing this. To some extent, it's us people who buy comic books. Because I just ran across this video with this guy. He was doing an unboxing of these comics that he ordered, right? And they were older comics. And he was hoping for, because they're all graded. And I don't understand this idiocy with grading, honestly. Even when it was back in the 90s where you'd say mint or near mint, that was pretty biased if you ask me. But he was looking for 9.6s on these books, and he got 8.6s, and this guy was devastated because there was these tiny little ticks on the edge of the spine of the book, and therefore it became an 8.6 instead of a 9.6 or a 9.4. Man, you just killed the fun there. That's just destroying all fun connected with it. If you can't read a comic without worrying about if you're going to put a tick in the spine, you just killed the fun of reading a comic book. Honestly. Completely killed it. So we are to some extent to blame for this as well. But honestly, I think that essential element needs to be there. A, it needs to be a book. And B, it needs to be a comic book. It needs to be a fun book. There needs to be fun in there. Because that is an essential element, if you ask me. An essential element of a comic book. There needs to be some fun. And I don't care if it's, man, he's a boss. And it's fun reading this because I get to see him kick the villain all over the place. Some people might find that to be fun and exciting. It doesn't matter. You just got to dig in and find where this fun of people who are looking for good stories right now is. Because it's been snuffed out by the SJWs, the anti-fun people. And if you're, tied into it, if you can just get to this underlying stream of the fun that people want today, then your books are going to take off. Anyway, I just wanted to ask that question. What kind of industry do you want to save? If you want to leave a comment to tell me what kind of industry you want to save, if it's something different from me, go ahead. Give me something new to think about, certainly. I love when everybody does that. But if I did give you something new to think about, hit like, hit that shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to hit subscribe. And leave me a comment. Give me something new to think about. All right. I'll see you later. Bye.